Okay, hello everyone. So, in continuation to our course database, let's continue it further. So, this is asynchronous meeting, and now let's start with our topic that we were continuing in the previous session, that is transactions and concurrency control. So far we have seen in transactions we have seen about acid property, right? So in acid property we saw how the transaction need to follow, what are the acid properties, and with the help of example we understood all about this. After acid property also we have seen about schedule, that is one of them is your serial and other is parallel, right? So in serial schedule we have seen, well, let's say transaction t1 t2 t3 and t4 are the transactions that we have. So serial, as the name says, the execution must be serial. So after finishing T1 transaction, only then T2 will start, and then T2, T3, and T4, and so on. So once the transaction is finished completely, only then the next transaction will initiate. Also, we have seen the parallel execution, right? So when we have the parallel execution, means one transaction in continuation can be stopped or say preempted for some amount of time, and then we continue the second transaction, and in this way so on rest of the transactions. So basically we perform the context switch between different transactions, and that is called your parallel execution. And the other name is, we say, such type of schedule where we have parallel execution of transaction, concurrency schedule, concurrent schedule, right? So we have already seen all those things in the previous session, right? So now let's see about concurrency. So in the previous class, we understood whenever there is a schedule which executes in serial execution, right? Senior fashion, for a serial fashion, for example, one after other. So definitely in that case, our database will remain always in consistent state, not inconsistent, right? Because there will be no issue. One after one transaction, we are performing other transaction. But again we saw there are, a lot of drawbacks are there, limitations are there, waiting time is very high, we all those covered in the previous class. Then we saw about the parallel transaction, parallel execution of your transaction, that is concurrent schedule. Let's see what are the advantages of our concurrency. So if we provide the concurrency to the transaction, let's see what are the advantages we get. So let's see a few points. For example, the first one is your waiting time, right? So understand there will be less waiting time over here, right? So this is obviously because, let's say in serial execution, T4 transaction need to wait for transaction T1, T2, and T3 to finish up, and then T2 will start. But in case of concurrency, right? So we have seen the transactions are preempted and the other transactions are given chance for the execution. So in that case, the waiting time for transaction will be very less, right? So this is what the benefit that we are getting. The second is your response time. What basically the response time is, for example, the transaction, whenever the transaction change its state from a passive to activate state, right? For example, active state. So what it means, whenever there is a transaction which is ready for the execution, right? This is one. Other thing is, whenever the transaction waits, or say the CPU, you can say, starts it executing this transaction, this time gap when the transaction was ready and when this transaction is allotted to the CPU for execution, this time gap is your response time, is the response given by the CPU for the execution. This response time also decreases in case of concurrency. The reason, we have seen in concurrency, transactions are executed after some, let's say, not after the complete execution, right? Means transactions are not required to wait for much amount of time. Low your waiting time and less your response time. So this is another your advantage over this. The third one is your resource utilization. Obviously, in this case, when we perform the concurrency, there is a high resource utilization. Resources will, that idealization time of your resources will be very less, means the resource will be very less passive for execution, means all the time the resources will be remain active, and due to which the efficiency of our say the database will increase. So that is what your efficiency, right? So resource utilization will give you high efficiency in this case, right? So these are a few advantages that basically we get on applying concurrency, and these are missing in your serial schedule execution, right? But understand, okay, that's fine, we got the advantages, that's a very good, but understand whenever we perform the execution, concurrent execution basically, right? So in this case there are a lot of other problems arises that we need to take care of, right? In the serial execution there was no such problem, but in case of parallel execution, that means in concurrency, we need to take care of such type of problems, right? So let's understand what are basically those problems in case in database. The first one famous is called your dirty read problem. That is your dirty read problem, the first one. Right, now let's understand what this dirty read problem is. Let's take the help of an example, we'll understand this. We have two transactions, and following are the operations that we have. Let's say two transactions we have in the database, we have, let's say, value 100, that's fine. When we perform this first operation of this transaction, this value of a is loaded to our buffer, that is 100 now here in the memory, right? Now read read operation, then we perform the write operation. For example, the write operation says we want to add 10 to the 100, that is 10. So write a will do 110, right? And when write will perform, the value in the buffer will change to 110. Now after this, we have done a switch to transaction T2, right? So transaction T2 will perform read operation, and what if it will read the value last modified by this transaction, that is what a equals to 110. Remember, this transaction will not take the value from this main memory, right? So what is the reason? In this one, the transaction is taking the previously modified a value. Since this is a different separate transaction, still it is taking the value from this one over here in the buffer. Understand one concept. This is your in your operating system, probably, if you remember. See, what used to happen, this is your CPU, right? Understand why we are not taking this value from memory, rather we are taking from this main memory, that is RAM. In between CPU we have your physical main memory, right? And then you have secondary storage over here, hard disk, you can see. This is what block structure, and this memory is this one, right? For example, now understand, whenever CPU start executing some instruction, for example, CPU needs some variable value, right? It needs some variable, right? So some instructions are being executed. The first, remember, this main memory is remain inside your CPU's RAM, basically you can say RAM, or you can say cache memory, all those. So always remember, whenever first CPU will generate the instruction, it will pass the instruction to the main memory. Means whatever value the CPU is looking for, first it will check from the main memory. Right, now understand, if this value is not present over here, then your instruction will go and search for the value in the secondary storage. For example, this block is there, right? This value is this block that we are looking for, the CPU is not present here, but it's present here. So what it will do, it will not perform the execution over here CPU. First it will take the value to your RAM, and then the value will go for the CPU for further execution, right? So process is first this way, looking for the memory. If it is not present, it will go in the your secondary storage. It will pick up the value 3 and will store it in the RAM, and then it will go for the execution, right? So see, first we are checking in your main memory buffer, not in the secondary storage, right? So in this case here, r of a, when it will try to read the variable a, if the variable a is found to be already in the buffer, that is main memory, that is 110. So that's why it will read the value 110 rather than 100, right? So I hope you have understood. Now see, So we have read the value transaction T2 and it performed the commit operation. So we know what is the commit operation, right? So 110 value, right? 110 will be reflected in your original database. That is what commit, right? And there is a transaction log that we already know being maintained by recovery management component. And this transaction log, once the commit operation will be, this is transaction logs for every transaction, that is for T2, and this will be simply deleted permanently from your secondary RAM, basically cache buffer, right? And after this, now understand the situation. After commit operation is being performed by T2, right? Now let's say this T1 transaction is still in the process, and after this one here, the transaction occurs some failure, right? So before, this is before commit operation, due to some natural problems occur in your system. This may be disk crash, maybe power cut, or any issue it can be, and due to this the failure occur in the transaction T1. So what will happen, you know, it will perform the rollback operation. That is what it will undo everything that the transaction T1 has done, and it will reflect those changes back in the what secondary storage, where basically the data is. So 110 will be again changed to 100, and this will again be changed, right? So what we have done, right? So in this case, whatever T2 transaction, the T2 transaction did perform any task, right? But that transaction operation is no more existing in the database. No changes are being reflected, right? So understand why this scenario is called dirty read. See, read operation is for this one over here. Why this read is called your dirty read? Transaction T2 read the value. Understand? Transaction T2 read the value other than the database memory. That is basically what your local buffer, your shared memory, which is not committed, right? So this transaction read that value which is not committed by the transaction, other transaction. In that case, this read is called your dirty read, right? Because the reason is maybe in the future T1 fails, for example like this one here, T1 fails, then it will roll back, right? And after performing the rollback, it will undo the changes back in the database. But remember, this way problem will not be always in practical, right? But sometimes problem can occur. How we can avoid this situation, right? How we can avoid this? Obviously, this commit operation, we will not commit this operation right before transaction T1 have not committed. Basically, we are going to commit after T1 gets commit statement over here, right? Understand in that way. So our solution probably can be, for example, T1, T2, two transactions, right? We perform read write over here. We can perform read A, but once it commit, right, after committing, we perform the commit for T2 transaction, not before this one. So in this way, we can avoid this dirty read problem, right? So I hope you have understood. This is quite easy, right? Okay. So this was the one of the problem that we face due to your concurrencies present in your system, right? But this is not the only problem. Let's move on to second problem. Let's see what second problem is. The second problem basically is your read write conflict, or we say unrepeatable read. Unrepeatable read, right? So what is this? Understand this read write conflict. This is important. Now understand what is this read write conflict, right? So if we know, we have two operations basically when we perform the execution, that is your read and write operation. In depth we will see when we'll start conflict serializability, there we will see in depth right now. But right now, okay, just understand in the basic way. On same database, for example, we have the same database data item, right? We see in the previous sessions, we have two transactions. In two transaction, any two transaction, for example, this is T1 and T2. If we encounter read on same data item A, and keep in mind there is no problem with this. But if with read in one transaction and write next we have write operation. Write next means it can be in the sequence after this. Other scenario is with write of A we have read of A, and with write of A we have both write. In this scenario there is problem, or say there is a conflict over there. So this conflict we need to take care of, and we need to remove this, right? So understand with the help of example how read write conflict on unrepeatable read comes into. Let's take two transactions, right? Okay, these are some values, let me just write down. Okay, see, let's take understand this by taking a real life example. For example, there are two users, that is user 1 and user 2. User 1 is working on transaction T1 and user 2 is working on transaction T1 T2. So a database is A. For example, A value, let's take this. For example, A database is actually number of seats available for your flight booking. You want to book a flight and you have seen over the internet, let's say two seats are available, right? So you want to book them. T1 transaction by user 1 was initiated, and read A means A value is now loaded into the buffer, that is equals to 2. Now write next. This will also read the value. This will say, yeah, okay, that's fine, A is equals to 2. And then see, T1 transaction just left it for some time, for some seconds, for example. Now, within that time frame, T2 user with T2 transaction modified the value, that is booked all of the ticket, for example, that is A equals to 0 now. And it performed the commit operation, means what? This A is changed to 0 and is now reflected in the data. Now, when T1 transaction, say user 1 return after some amount of time, and it again try to read the same value, that is now it read the value what? 0. Right? So now A1 A value, that is T1 transaction is reading the value A equals to 0. But just wait. We have seen acid property. In acid property, we have something called here isolation. So what isolation means? Transactions are executing, right? Multiple transactions are executing in such a way that output of one transaction is not affected by the output of is not affected by your second transaction. For example, in this one, T2 transaction affected the value of T1 transaction. Yes or no? Before some amount of time, T1 read a value 2, and some out of time it read the value 0. So definitely T1 will think of like something wrong is happening. T1 is not all alone. T1 is not working in isolation. So after this, T1 will ultimately will stop, kill itself, or say abort the process, and it will try to roll back. So once it will roll back, it will retain the value from 0 to 2, and it will affect the value again 0 to 2 in that case. But see the thing is, T2 transactions have already done the ticket booking and again it's changed to 2. So isn't it a consistency in the database? Right. So due to this reason, whenever we have such type of scenario, we call as read and write conflict. Why? Because this read affected with this write. Discount, because read in two different transactions we see there is no problem, but when a read and write came, there is a problem, and here this problem is read write conflict, right? So we need to take care of this thing, that there should not be here read and write operations over here, means there should not be conflict over here. Something similar to this problem, which is called as, let's see that also, phantom read problem. Phantom read problem. Right. So what this phantom read is, understand, we have two transactions T1 and T2 like that. Let me take this problem is quite similar to this. There is a basic difference. Let's see read of A, and again we read of A, and let's say we perform read of A and we commit. Then we try to read of A. See, understand now, in this case, when we got the value of A, for example, A is equals to 2, and we read the value of 2 over here. We load the value in the buffer and we read the value. Again, this also read the value A equals to 2. But let's say due to some reason, T2 transaction need to delete this instance data variable, data item A from the database. There might be some reason. See, understand, this transaction is doing some change in your structure of your database. Here you are removing some attribute over here, not removing the values. You are removing complete attribute. That is means there is a change instance, right? So this is possibly valid operation in the database, because remember the transaction have every access to modify structure of your database. So it can perform any operation. The transaction make sure that should be valid and should not create inconsistency in the database, right? But now here delete operation is being performed, right? So due to this it perform the commit also, right? So it means what, there is no existence of data item A from here. But now see, when the flow will go to the T1 transaction and it will try to read the value of A for this transaction, isn't it? It's a kind of horrible thing, because this T1 transaction right after before a few seconds read the value of A equals to 2, and after a few seconds, even after 1 second, you can say that transactions are very fast. It will try to again read the value of A and it will find out like nothing A exists. It's a kind of magic. Right before 1 second this thing was with transaction T1, but now it just vanishes by due to some reason. So definitely T1 transaction will again it will came into T1 transaction law that there is something wrong happening over here. Transaction T1 is not all alone, it's not isolated, right? So in that case it will again cause a failure and it will try to roll back the scenario, right? So this problem when we have such type of scenario, we did the operation and we cause failure due to this read, is called your phantom read. So this read is causing your phantom read because you cause the failure due to this. Anyhow you perform, T2 is valid in its own, but this after this one the situations went wrong over here, right? So this problem is again called your phantom read. The solution for the both of them is don't perform the commit operation of the value, the transaction that you are using, right? Perform the commit after this. Make sure you perform the commit before this T2 transaction, right? Then you can just avoid the scenario situations. So these are a few problems that generally we need to take care of, and this happen just due to inconsistency creating inside the database when we have concurrent execution of transactions, right? Now understand, so far we have seen the problems, right? When these type of problems occur, the schedules are divided broadly into different categories, right? With such type of problems, now let's see what are those. The first is your recoverable versus irrecoverable schedules, right? Recoverable versus irrecoverable schedules, right? So now let's see what are these recoverable schedule. So obviously, as the name depict, recoverable schedule means whatever you have done in the past, probably you can recover those. And how we recover? Definitely, we have a transaction law, which is maintained by your recovery management component in your transactions, right? So that is recoverable. But what are the scenarios in which we cannot recover the schedule, right? Let's see that, right? So to understand irrecoverable schedule, let me take an example of two transaction T1 and T2. The values are something like this. Okay. Fine. So this is what timeline, right? So this arrow is your timeline. So as the time increases, we perform different operations in the transaction. Okay, see now. Let us take the value a equals to 50 that is in your database. So read a means a value taken from here and it will load it into the buffer. 50 now. Now this is what difference, do arithmetic operation, subtract 10 out of 50 and write a value that is 40. So here now we have 40. So read a, what it will read 50 or 40. So obviously we have this a inside the buffer. So it will read what a equals to 40. Right now a equals to a minus 2. That is what a equals to 38. It will write a that is 40 change to 38 and it will commit. So this 50 will change to 38 now. Right now see, let's take some other variable. The control will go to transaction T1 now, and let's say B is having some 100 value. So B equals to 100 now. Okay, this is being taken over here. Understand now, scenario happens after this, they cause some failure. Right, quite similar to your read and write problem, right? That way. If we encounter the failure, we haven't performed commit in T1, but T2 have committed. Definitely we will roll back and redo the operation, right? Sorry, undo, right? Redo in case of commit, undo in case of failure. About. So when we perform the rollback undo operation, the 38 will change to 50, isn't it? And it will again load the value 30 to 50. Right. So here transaction T1 failed. It will roll back the change made in the log file and will be taken back to a initial value. So means due to the rollback of T1 transaction here, due to this rollback of T1 transaction, a value will be again updated to 50 in the database. Right. So doing this basically what? It basically, uh, the transaction T2, which is committed, right? It made some changes in the database. The change are lost, right? Definitely, whatever change we have made due to transaction T2, we cannot recover them. These are not recoverable, right? So because we are on the same stage initially, what we are having the value, and once we perform the commit operation, transaction log is completely removed from your main memory, say the buffer. Such type of problem or such type of schedules basically are irrecoverable schedule, right? So these are basically see, this is quite similar. Understand, don't get confused because these term might be confusing. Because understand now, we have the schedule, right? In the schedule, if we encounter like this one, the previous problems, right? This phantom read, or say the read and write config. See, read and write config, we have the same scenarios. So if we have such type of issues, read on write conflict we have, or let's say we have dirty read problem even, right? Any schedule which contains such type problem is your what? Irrecoverable schedule. This is what we have seen, right? So understood. So with this, we have finished our first type of schedule, that is recover or irrecover schedule. But the second one is again most important one, right? With the name cascading schedule versus cascadeless schedule. Right now, let's understand what uh, this is. This cascade word you are already familiar when we were doing referential key integrity constraint, right? So it was also there, if you remember. So understand what the cascading means. It means what? First understand. Let me write also. Occurrence of single event. Due to the occurrence of single event, multiple events also occur. Right? So basically one event basically happened, and due to the occurrence of this event, it triggered the other events also. Right? So that scenario basically called as cascade. right? So here we need to understand what is cascadeless schedule and cascade schedule, right? And how this is a problem, create the inconsistency in the database, right? So understand that. For that, let me take an example. You will be understanding. Let's say the transactions are like this, multiple transactions in that way, right? The operations are something like this. For example, a has some value 50 inside the database. When we perform the read, a is taken to your main memory buffer a50. Understand now. First read a, then let's say a performs some values and it changed the value 50 to 40, for example, right? Now a just waited for some amount of time and this b transaction t2 read the value, what, for example, a equals to 40. After this next again T3 transaction also read the value that is equals to 40, and then T4 transaction equals to 40, right? After this they perform some execution, for example, it can be, right? Now let's understand at this point of time T1 transaction at this point of time caused some failure. See, everything was running fine over here, right? There was no failure or anything, there were no um, disturbance in the execution, but at this point of time let's say we encounter a failure. So what will happen? Everything will roll back. We need to perform the undo operation. Means whatever value we have changed, it will again change to 50 and it will again be the same initial value. But understand, what about these transactions, right? Since they read the value 40, T3 also, T4 also, they started their execution with some wrong value. Why? Because this 40 value has no significance. There is no existence for this 40 value. Why? We have rolled this value. We have performed the rollback operation. This 40 again changed to 50, but they are still using that 40. Although they successfully may execute this, but in that case, even we have failure over here, forcefully we need to abort all these transactions also. Why? Because if they will perform commit operation, then definitely their in database will be inconsistent. Why? They are using a wrong value. There is no existence of this 40 due to this failure in the data transaction T1. Right? Such type of problems are basically called cascading schedule. Means that this such type of problem in the schedules is called a cascading schedules. Right? We need to avoid such, and see what is the reason, right? Reason behind this one is, again we are going to read, we are reading those values of the transaction which is uncommitted, right? The same value, same thing, right? So this is what we need to avoid. Now this thing, to avoid this thing, that is given by your cascadeless schedule. What cascadeless schedule says to avoid this problem, cascadeless schedule says that don't allow to read those values from the transaction which are taken from uncommit transaction, right or no? Right. So don't allow to them to read values from here. When they perform the commit operation, then you allow them to read the values, right? So hence after write, read not allowed. No, nowhere. After write, there is no read, right? But understand this statement. After write, we are not allowed to perform read operation. But as a part of conflict, if we have seen the scenarios, after write there is no read, okay, but after write we can have again another write. So this problem is not even avoided in cascadeless schedule, right? Understand, for example, T1 and T2 transaction, read a, write a. Before that, I'm performing read a operation means first, second, and then third this one, and write of a. And let's say I'm commit the operation. See, this is a conflict over here, write and write. This thing is not avoided in your cascadeless schedule, right? So these things should be, avoided. But when we avoid this problem become a strict cascadeless schedule. We will see later, that is strict cascadeless schedule. This basically avoids right conflict also, right? So this is a type of problem that these are the few problems that we need to take care of when we have concurrence execution of your transactions, concurrent schedules, right? Okay, I hope you have understood. Still, if you haven't any doubt, you can just go back and again see, understand the concept. Okay, well, good enough. So now we can start to our next topic that is very important, right? Okay, just so our next topic is your serializability. This is very important. So understand what is serializability, right? So we are quite familiar with the term parallel execution, serial execution, right? So parallel we say the concurrent schedules and we say serial schedules for serial execution of transaction, right? Now understand what serializability says. It is a concept, right? What it says that we are given a parallel schedule with multiple transactions, right? Can we find out a corresponding serial schedule or not for this particular parallel schedule execution? If we can find out such type of schedule, then we say this schedule is serializable and it exhibit the property serializability, right? So let me write, given a parallel schedule, right? Can we find out a corresponding serial schedule or not? If we can find out the serial schedule, we say it exhibit the property serializability, right? So understand now, if see some parallel schedule we have seen in the parallel schedule, basically we preempt the transaction and right we give the say the chance for the other transaction to start its execution. This is what your parallel schedule. And serial schedule means one after other. One transaction completely finished, then only we go to the second. Understand now, this serial schedule are always serializable. That doesn't make any sense, because see, the serial schedule means, for example, we have T1 and T2 transaction, right? We have operations like this, right? So understand, we have first T1 and then we are executing T2. Understand, in serializability and the rest of the other coming topics, we will take the help of graph. We will draw the graph and then we will understand the things, right? So here now, if we draw the graph, right? So we know for a general graph, we have two main component. One is your vertex and other is your number of edges, or say the edges, right? So here in this case, how many vertices will be there, that will be identified by how many number of transactions we have in the schedule. Here how many transaction? Two transaction, that is T1 and T2. Now understand the flow, how the flow is working. For T1 transaction, first we execute the T1 transaction, yes, and then the flow goes to T2 transaction. Hence the flow is T1 to T2. This is what serial execution. First T1 completely executes, only then T2 starts. Also, let's say we gave the priority to T2 transaction first. We can give that like this. In this scenario, what the things is, from T2 transaction, we are going to T1. That is first this executed. Now the turn of T1 comes over here. So these are serial transactions, serial schedules basically. One after other, we are executing the transactions. Hence, such type of serial schedules are always serializable. But parallel schedule, we need to deal with parallel schedule. Right? Understand now for parallel schedule. Let us take two transactions again T1 and T2 in such a way with operations like this. Right? So again we have two transactions T1 and T2, but understand first we started with T1 transaction and then we move to T2 transaction. Hence the control goes from T1 to T2. We executed T2 completely and then we came back to T1. That is flow goes from T2 to T1. This is what, it's not a serial schedule, but this is a concurrent schedule. Why? Because we are doing the preempt operation. We are just stopping T1 and then we giving priority, let's say not priority, we are giving a chance to T2 transaction to start its execution and then going back from T2 to T1 again. This way we can plot a simple graph. Remember, this is simple graph that shows the flow of execution of your transactions inside a schedule, right? Now, out of this parallel schedule, we need to find out a serial schedule. For this corresponding parallel schedule, are we going to have serial schedule of like this? Means one after other. If one after other means either from T1 to T2 we can have, or we can have from T2 to T1 in opposite this way. Right? So out of these two, which one we can have from this one? If we can find out any of one, then we say this corresponding parallel schedule, or they say this schedule is serializable. Right? We say this schedule is serializable. Right? So the next question comes is, for example, if a schedule is serializable, then how many serial schedules are possible for this parallel schedule? Right? So how many? The number of serial schedules that are possible for any parallel schedule. Right, the question generally used to ask. Okay. It's here. Understand now, for example, we have three transactions. A schedule is with T1, T2 and T3. T3 three transactions we have. So what are the possible serial schedules for this one? Right. Serial schedule means one after other. Complete. For example, we can have first T1 and then we can have T2 and then T3 in the serial execution. Right. But also instead of T2, we can have T3 and then T2. Yes or no? This is also another possibility. For T2, we have T1 and T3, and for T2 also we have T3 and T1. The same goes for T3, we can have T1 and T2, and for T3, we can have T2 and then T1. Is there any other possibility? Probably no. So how many? Six. For three transactions, we have six possibilities of serial schedules, right? So what if we have five transactions? How many? The reason is in generalize, we have 5 factorial. That is what in this case, we have 3 factorial. Right? 3 factorial, 3 times 2, that is 6. So in this way, we find out how many serial schedules are possible for any at most. But understand, in the given scenario, for example, over here, we have two possibility, two transactions, T1 and T2. So the possibility is either T1 then T2 or T2 then T1. When we find out the serial schedule, out of two, if there exists at least one, even one exists, then we say the schedule is serializable. In T3, I mean T1, T2, and T3 with three transactions, out of these six, if we get any at least one is possible, then we say the schedule given is serializable. We need to find at least one, right? So this is what the thing concept is, to identify this, to understand about the serializability. But to identify the serializability, we have two different approaches, right? So these approaches we need to understand, very important. But to understand those approaches, probably we'll start this in the next class, right? So with this one, what we have covered so far, we have seen what are the advantages, right? What are the advantages of concurrent schedules, and then we understood what are the, benefits, or say what are the drawbacks, what are the limitations of concurrent schedule, right? And what were the, starting from your dirty read, we saw you read and write problem, then we saw phantom read, and then we categorize the schedules into two different parts. That one is your recoverable and irrecoverable schedule, and other is cascadeless and cascading schedule, right? So this is what we have seen. Probably in the next class, we have understood serializability as well, right? So we understood what is the serializability. To identify whether a schedule is serializable or not serializable, we will start that in the next class. And remember, this is very important. In any examination, you can just think of, they probably will provide you a schedule and will ask you whether this is serializable or not, right? So to identify the serializability, right, and if this is serializable, then what is the corresponding serial schedule exist for this one, for the question, we need to identify this also. So again, this is very important, and probably in the next class we will start understanding this, right? So till then, just go through this part whatever we have covered right now, and we'll see you in the next class, in the next session. Okay, thank you. You can stop recording.